Welcome to the Ocals channel. Thanks for watching today. Let's continue our journey to finish every single Game Boy Color game. Today focus on a game called Toki Tori for the Game Boy Color. Now this game here is probably one of the most impressive graphical games I've seen on the Game Boy Color. Very much of a 16-bit looking game, but it's on 8-bit hardware, so that's very impressive. But it's not just the graphics, the gameplay is also top tier, focusing on a 2D puzzle mechanics here. And very creative, very adorable, and has lots of charm as well. This is one of the later games on the Game Boy Color, and it definitely shows here. Now this particular game did get moved up in the queue a bit because Alec Kermit requested I cover sooner than later, so naturally moved up in the queue. If there's a game that you want to see me cover sooner than later, let me know the name of the game in the comments down below. And just like Toki Tori, I'll move it right on up. Now I can start to view his up. Look at the box art for the game first. The box art here has our Toki Tori right there in the center, a yellow bird, and then it also has Toki Tori in the background sleeping in a waterfall, as well as just simply hopping, which are different moves he can learn throughout the game. Or she. I don't know if Toki Tori is a boy or a girl. But the cover describes it pretty well, except for the fact that there is no sleeping move that I could find inside the game. I'll admit I only went through the core story levels, so perhaps there's something in the extra hard levels I missed out on. But I don't recall him ever sleeping inside the game. Now I was curious, like, what is a Toki? Because I've never heard that word before. So I looked it up on the internet. The Toki is a Japanese name for the crested ibis, a rare endangered white plumaged bird known for its significant cultural importance in Japan. That's according to Google anyway. And so I had no idea, but evidently it's a very important bird in Japan. And it does make sense inside the story because like Toki Tori is like a chosen bird or a chosen chicken. And that's because he or she is no ordinary chicken. It is very much of a special bird inside the culture. So to have one of those in your chicken yard would indeed be a treat. And no wonder the evil villain is trying to capture Toki Tori. So a little bit of a biology lesson to go along with it, but overall a very good cover for the game. Now when you load the game up here, you do have a very bland title screen. Does not go along with the extraordinary nature of the game as a whole. Just simply says the title of the game and some green blocks in the background. Just simply does not really look very special. However, the song playing in the background is pretty top tier. It's not the best song in the game. We'll get to that in a little bit, but it is a very catchy tune. I'll let a little bit of it play right here. Like I said, is a very catchy, very good song, and in most games this would probably be the best song in the game. However, for this game we do have the #1 spot holding on for a little bit longer in one of the levels. However, at this point we go ahead and jump straight into the story, and it's pretty much a ordinary day on the chicken farm here. We got some chickens out there pecking for the best worm of their life. Looks like they're Rhode Island Reds, but I could be wrong on what type of chicken they are. Great graphics here as well. All the chickens look almost like they're 3D animated for that era a little bit. Really cool looking, but all of a sudden all the chickens go back to like egg form here and are abducted, almost like an alien abduction. And all the chickens are abducted, all of the eggs are abducted. However, there is one very special egg that does not get abducted and is going to hatch out, and that is going to be the Toki Tori, or our main character here. He's very upset and decides to follow all of the eggs. They're sort of flying through the air. And he finds out they all go to this little castle here, and that's sort of like the hub base. But then all of a sudden, all the eggs get cast out of the castle across the landscape. And Toki Tori has no idea why, but since he's like the protector of his family and he wants to find all of his family and friends, he's going to journey through all of these landscapes to try to rescue pretty much everybody who was taken from him. And before I forget about it, let's harken back to the scene where like all the other chickens are just regular chickens and Toki Tori is unique looking, and that's because Toki is a endangered rare bird of significance in Japan, which once again goes back to what I was talking about in the intro. Like when I was actually playing the game, I really couldn't figure out why like Toki was different looking. And this is indeed the reason why. He is not a chicken. Now at this point we are taken to our first level here called Forest Falls, and every level has roughly 10 to 15 stages in it, depending on like how many learning stages there are for like new moves and things like that. But before you go into any of these stages, you get like a little pre-stage menu, and it tells you essentially like which items you're going to get here, how many minutes you have to complete the stage, what's the high score on the stage, how many tries you've taken on this stage, and just sort of like the little intro screen before you hop into it. Now the first level here, it does give you one tool, and it tells you it's the eyeball tool, which allows you to essentially look around the level. Not very handy on the small levels, but like later on in the game when the levels get really large, you can scroll across the whole thing and sort of like plot out your strategy here. And we go ahead and head into the first stage, and once again the goal is to collect all of the eggs. Controls are very easy. A is the jump button, and it is a very small jump. Don't expect to jump very far. It really feels like you're going up like one single pixel. It's pretty insignificant. However, like there are plenty of jumps that are just simply that one single pixel up there. And the B button is going to allow you to use any of the abilities that you have for that level. Now you want to swap between your abilities, you press the select button. On the first level here, our only ability is the eyeball ability, which I said earlier allows you to look around the level, but just keep that in mind if you want to swap abilities later. But as we're looking at the level here, we have to also acknowledge like how graphically impressive this game is. You have a full background, you have a full foreground, you have the full midground, I guess, where Toki Tori is walking around. You have like little waterfall graphics coming across here, shading on the character himself, and just an overall like, oh, and also like very not interactive, but very energetic, I guess, or very active background and foreground, because you can see like little flowers moving in the wind. You have like a little carrot that pops up from the ground sometimes. The game just feels very alive, and that allows a lot of charm to shine through at the same time. And so there's lots to look at as you're journeying through here. And like I said in the intro, it feels more like a 16-bit game than an 8-bit, just simply because it is so graphically impressive. Now, once you collect all of the eggs, you journey off into the next stage, which is going to be a new item stage. We're going to get something called the Bridge Builder, and you can stand on any edge and press the B button, and it builds a 2-block bridge out in front of you, which allows you to traverse the environment a little bit easier. However, you can't just simply use the Bridge Builder unlimited times. There is a number beside it in the upper left-hand corner, and so you'd have to like try to figure out exactly where you want to build the bridges or not, which is going to lead into some of the puzzle mechanics later on in the game. Now, 1-2 allows you to put your new tool to good use here, and when you head into 1-3, you're going to get your first enemy inside the game, which is essentially a large slime ball here with a giant eyeball in the center of its face. And like I said in some of my earlier Game Boy videos throughout the series, some reason the 80s and the 90s, and I guess in this case the early 2000s, they loved a good slime enemy inside these games, and they seem to put them in pretty much any game they could think of. I mean, like even a couple weeks back I did a game called Nail and Scale. They even had slime balls in them. So like slime ball is like the most ordinary enemy you can possibly have. However, the graphics here for this particular one, they are pretty good, and it does look pretty cute as far as the animation goes. Now the next level here is going to give you a new item called the Telewarp, and if you press the B button, you can essentially then press the D-pad, and you can go up, down, left, or right. You can teleport basically 2 squares over. It's going to help you get across like different walls that would normally be blocking your path, or just simply hop around enemies that are possibly in your way. And so 1-4 puts that to good use, and then 1-5 sort of puts the bridge tool and the teleport together and allows you to swap back and forth between your items and really try to figure out a very small, simple puzzle for the game. 1-6 does the same thing. And then we're going to get a new item here called the Freeze-O-Matic, which is essentially an ice gun. It shoots out a ice, like not really beam, but ice wave out in front of you and turns any enemy into a little block of ice here. Now this does prevent them from attacking you. However, it's also going to create a block inside your paths, and since your jump is very limited, you can't hop over them. So you simply have to be very careful where exactly you put the ice block when you freeze your enemies. 1-7 is going to put that to good use, and then 1-8 is going to teach you a very important lesson inside the game as far as like letting you know it does matter which orders you collect the eggs in. Because if you collect the eggs in a certain order or the wrong order, the enemy is going to walk off in the wrong direction. That's going to prevent you from getting certain eggs later on. And so like in this particular level, if you collect the right egg first, the enemy is going to head off to the right. If you collect the left egg first, the enemy will head off to the left. And it does make a difference on if you can finish this level or not. I went through it probably 4 times before I realized like, hey, do not collect that right egg like straight off the bat, even though you are closest to it. Sort of like a small trick, but it does teach you a very important lesson. 1-9 is really nothing new, and then 1-10 essentially gives you all the items that you've had thus far in one single level. Not too difficult, but it's letting you know like, hey, you are going to have to be swapping a lot as you go. After this, you have finished up level 1, and you have 2 options. You can either go back into level 1 itself and try the harder stages, or you can journey off into level number 2. And I went ahead and journeyed off into level number 2. However, there are 5 harder stages per individual level, and if you do those, you do get a special ending at the close of the game. But since I'm just simply trying to get the credits to roll, we just simply journey on into the next stage. Now we get a little cutscene here, and it shows Toki Tori basically getting out of the forest and journeying up to a castle, looking up at the castle walls, and that's going to be our second level called Creepy Castle. Very creative there. Now the castle itself does remind me a great deal of like Bowser's Castle from Mario Kart 64, for like the different coloring it has for the bricks, the lava on the ground here, and just sort of like the overall aesthetic for it. You do have like little cobwebs and bats and like chains across the ground. It's trying to get the creepy castle vibes of sort, but it does have a overall good aesthetic. Now we do get a new item here. It's called the brick switch, and you basically walk up to a large stone in front of you, and you press the B button, and you can move that stone behind you. And some levels allow you to do this unlimited times. Sometimes they limit the number of times that you can do it. But you basically are simply rearranging the level a little bit, and occasionally you'll have to drop the stones into individual crevices here in order to make a pathway for you to walk later on as you progress. You're also going to get another new item called the Ghost Trap, which basically allows you to take any stone, stand on top of it, and you do like a little magic spell here, and you turn the stone beneath you into a ghost trap, which allows them to fall through the floor. And then, of course, it opens up a natural pathway for you to drop down to progress the level as well. Now, 2-3 is going to put these new moves into practice here. And I really like the overall stage layout here because you're like basically on the outside of the castle and you can journey on the inside of it. And it just simply has an overall, intriguing design to it. 2-4 is going to be fairly easy, but I will say it's probably the largest level as of yet. And then 2-5, 2-6, 2-7, 2-8, 2-9, I guess I could have just said 2-5 through 2-9 there, are going to be almost all the same as far as like just simply giving you the tool that you already have, and you're going to be maneuvering across the castle stages here. And I'm not going to go through every single puzzle of what it entails. However, just know they're going to get slowly progressively harder as we're going. And even like 2-10 is not going to be like drastically different. However, like I will say, like in 2-10, like I'm really grasping like how the game is played here. And like one of the best tips that I can give you is simply scan the environment and figure out like which egg is going to be your final egg. Like when you fall down to get a particular egg, which one can you not get back out of the hole of, and you're basically trapped from it. That's your last egg, and then you sort of like start working backwards through the environment, figuring out like what you probably need to do in order to get to the area before that egg, and then the area before that egg, and then the area before that egg. And so you're slowly working your way backwards, and it really does like help solve the puzzle. Now at the close of the castle stages here, we get another little cutscene, and basically as a Toki Tori journeying through the castle itself, finds a room, walks into the room, there's a table with a book on it, and in the book it basically tells of a magical egg, and the person who lives in the castle was trying to find this magical egg, and that's why he captured all of the eggs from the entire, landscape, and why he threw them back out, because none of them were the magical egg. We are the magical egg. Toki Tori realizes this at the moment, and it's for the reason he has all these extra powers and such. And it's also why he's inside the castle. He sees another egg on a shelf, and he begins to walk over there. But when he gets close, basically a trap door opens up, and he basically drops down into our next level here, which is going to be called Slime Cave. Now we start off with a new weapon here called the Snail Snatcher, which is a really cool rhyming title for a weapon. However, you don't actually snatch any snails at all. You snatch or slurp up slugs. That would have been a much better title for the weapon, the Slug Slurper. Man, I wish I could have been on the development team because I really do like the title of the Slug Slurper here. I can even say it right. But basically you're journeying through level 3, and the Slug Slurper, as I'm still going to call it, it slurps up these adorable little purple slugs, have like little buck teeth out front, and basically when you slurp them up here you feel like a Ghostbuster, and even like they're sort of having trouble going into the slurper itself. I don't know, maybe I'm talking too much about the slug slurper, but I really did enjoy this particular mechanic. And also if like you're far away from the slug and you do the moves of slurp it up, it just simply changes direction with the wind itself. And I didn't really think too much of that until I got stuck in the later level, and that is going to be required. Now also in level 3 you're going to get a new weapon called the Crate Creator, which allows you to essentially put a giant crate out in front of you, help you make platforms, maneuver the level a little bit, things like that. And it's not too far into level 3 here. I think it's actually in 3-3 that you figure out like you don't just simply want to put the crate like even on the environment. You want to always put like fairly catty corner, so there's like a small gap there that you can just simply walk over, like a free space of sorts. Level 3-4 has really got you thinking outside the box as far as like where to drop the crates at to start creating like little bridges and such, and you're really having to like analyze the levels as a whole. 3-5 is going to allow you to do what's called crate stack'ems here, And it's sort of nice to finally go into a level and just sort of unload the items instead of like really think hard about it. And speaking of thinking hard about a level, 3-6 probably took me the longest of any level inside this entire game, because there was one slug that kept on journeying in one particular direction. It would always block off some eggs that I needed to get, and I could not figure out for the life of me how to get over there before the slug. And it finally dawned on me, that move I mentioned earlier, if you simply stand back and use the slug slurper a little bit, he will turn direction and start coming back to the direction towards you, and that's all you had to do. If I just simply read the directions for the game, it would have made a heck of a lot more sense. I could have had this level defeated a whole lot easier, but 3-6 is probably what took me the longest in the game. 7, 8, and 9 of level 3 are all pretty much the same, and then level 3-10 here, like, you're really going to have to start maneuvering the slug pretty much to the max, all the way down the little passageway here of the vertical level. You're constantly turning the slug's direction, left and right, left and right, left and right, until you finally get to a drop off in the appropriate area. And so they're really making you use the slug slurper to the most advantage here. And when you do finish up level 3, you get a little cutscene, a little drop of water falls on top of the head of Toki Tori. He looks up into the air, sees the water dropping down, and then basically the whole waterway breaks loose and washes him away into the water level called Bubble Barrage. Now, Bubble Barrage here, you're going to start off by getting a new item called the Bubble Suit. And it's exactly what you think it would be. You turn into a giant bubble and you can float around the level. However, there is a limit on how far you can float inside that bubble, depending on like how much oxygen that you have. And so there's like little air geysers throughout the level you can stand on top of, and you get anywhere from 5 to 15 air supply when you stand on top of it, and you can sort of journey your way through the levels. I will say, anytime you do this, you want to conserve as much air as possible and basically stand on the far edge of any cliff before you turn into a bubble, just simply to get one more, I guess, space or sprite move out of the journey, instead of wasting it by starting too early. Now, as far as enemies go, you are going to get these little green puffer fish here with little spikes all across them. You're going to get like little worms hopping out from holes inside the waterways. And so overall, a very charming level. However, the best part I've not even mentioned yet, and that is the music in the background of the Bubble Barrage. This is by far the best song in the entire game. The way it builds up, the overall little catchy tune it has, just an excellent song. I'll let a little bit play right here. Like I said, the intro song was wonderful. However, this song definitely takes the cake as the best song inside the entire game and would make it on pretty much any retro Game Boy playlist. Now, you're also going to get a new item here called the Freeze-O-Matic, which allows you to shoot a ice gun out and freeze the fish inside the level. However, instead of just turning into an ice cube, the ice cube is going to float in the water just like regular ice would. And when it floats up, it's going to create little platforms that you can walk across. So you have to sort of time that out to the best of your abilities. Now, 4-2 really does sort of begin to put this into practice as far as like, you know, the bubble ability as well as the Freeze-O-Matic. 4-3 is going to be very simple, and then that is followed up with 4-4, which is one of the harder levels inside the game because there are so many stone flips and trying to figure out which place to start, where you're going to flip the stones individually. Do you need to create bridges before you do the stone flips? And it just really took me a lot of time to figure this one out, a lot of backtracking, and then you hit off into 4-5, and this is a very horizontal level. And I've not really talked a whole lot about it, but the game is sort of divided into some levels are very vertical, some levels are very horizontal, some are sort of like a square. And honestly, any horizontal level are my favorite ones. Very traditional 2D platforming. And these are just simply the easiest ones for me to figure out the puzzle. Like it just sort of, I don't know, makes more sense in my brain instead of having to go up and down. Really, like any platformer that makes you go up and down just simply doesn't like go real well with like my thinking skills. For some reason, I definitely do better with the horizontal. However, 4-5 is probably one of the easier ones on that. But then 4-6 and 4-7 are going to contrast that and have you really freezing a lot of fish to create platforms in order to traverse across them, which naturally does cause you to have to move up and down vertically a little bit more. Now 4-8 is going to continue on to vertical levels. However, like the hardest part I had on this was actually at the very beginning, and I kept trying to beat this little puffer fish here, going around the little semicircle, getting off to the edge, and every single time I was losing this particular race, and I couldn't figure it out because like this is the only way to do it to get all the eggs. And probably after like 15 minutes, I realized, holy cow, there's a little cutout in the middle of the platform, and you simply become a bubble, float up above it, let the pufferfish go under you, come back down, continue on your way. This should not have been the hardest part of the level, but for some reason I just overlooked it every single time. And once I figured that out, the rest of the level felt like a piece of cake. 4-9 is going to start basically giving you every single weapon slot filled up, and you have lots of different options of what you want to do here. And even though they're giving you so many options, I don't really feel like 4-9 was super difficult. However, that is definitely contrasted on the final level of the game. 4-10, you get 9 minutes to solve this puzzle, and they really want you to analyze it as much as possible. You have so many different moves that you can use here, and it does feel like you're really having to think a whole lot about it as you're journeying through it, and it's easy to make mistakes and realize you've gotten stuck and you have to restart the entire level over again. And so I do feel like this particular level lives up to being the final level inside the game. That is, of course, unless you do the hard levels, which I'm not doing, at least in this particular playthrough. Now at this point we do get a cutscene where basically all of the bubbles come up in a giant geyser as you come flying out with it, and you land back inside the castle, and you luckily land right back in front of the egg that you were looking at before you fell through the trap door. And at this point you take that egg and all the other eggs that you've collected and take them back to your chicken farm, and you guys live happily ever after with all the chickens that you have rescued. Now the game does say like you have finished it up, congratulations. However, it does recommend you going back and capturing or rescuing the rest of your egg friends or the rest of your chicken friends by doing the hard levels. And I haven't done it yet. I might one day, but I haven't done it, and at this point the credits do begin to roll. Now I did look up and see like what happens if you do finish up the hard mode and you complete all of the individual levels and collect all the eggs, and you do get a special ending, and it gives you a website to go to. And I did go to that website to see what it said, and it said the link was basically taken offline at this point, and so we'll never truly know. I mean, it's probably documented somewhere on the internet, but I couldn't find it by simply going to the link. And it reminds me, like a lot of times they talk about like modern games, like when the server goes offline, the games just want to cease to exist. And it's like one of the first examples of that happening. They built something into the game that was dependent upon online capabilities, and since they didn't keep up with that particular server, that particular part of the game is now just simply lost. And I don't know, sort of like a precursor of what modern gaming is going to become to a degree, which is a whole different topic for an entirely different day. But let's talk about this game as an overall. This is one of the best Game Boy Color games out there. It is charming, has great graphics, it has I would say the right difficulty for puzzle mechanics, and just simply overall very well executed. The game is extraordinarily well designed, has good replayability. There's really almost nothing wrong with this game. However, for me, as I was going through it, like I really enjoyed it. However, for like personal taste, I thought about the last game I gave a perfect score to, which was Mole Mania, and Toki Tori just simply didn't pull me in quite as much as Mole Mania. It was close, but I liked the overall story, the variety of Mole Mania just a little bit better, and like the jokes that were throughout. It was just more of a fleshed out game. And so Toki Tori, I really liked it, but to me it's a 9 out of 10. It's not a perfect 10 out of 10 game. It's just a really well designed puzzle game, and I think most people will definitely enjoy it as you're going through it. But what do you all think? Do you think Toki Tori is a perfect 10 out of 10? Let me know in the comments down below, and as always, if you enjoyed the video, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Check out my other videos listed up above, and go out there, find a great game to play. Simply have a great rest of the day.